The underestimated species, the massive observation deck of Nexus Prime, stretched endlessly before Commander Sarah Chen, its crystalline walls offering a breathtaking view of the swirling nebula that housed the most important military summit in galactic history. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching alien dignitaries from dozens of species mingle in groups, their conversations creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic tones that her universal translator worked overtime to decode. "Still can't believe they invited us," muttered Admiral Marcus Torres, adjusting his crisp Earth Fleet uniform. The graying veteran had fought in every major conflict since the Resource Wars, and his weathered face bore the scars of battles fought. In the vacuum of space, 5 years since first contact, and we're still the new kids trying to prove we belong. Dr. Elena Busquets, their xenobiologist and cultural liaison, approached with a datapad clutched in her hands. Her dark eyes were troubled as she glanced around at the assembled alien powers. "The preliminary assessments are in," she said quietly. "The Zephyr Council classifies our weapons as charmingly primitive. The Dominion rates our fleet strength as negligible but spirited, and the Ethereal Collective ... She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They suggested we might be better suited as a protectorate species." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. 3 years of diplomatic negotiations, countless demonstrations of human ingenuity, and they were still being treated like children playing with toys. Around them, the real powers of the galaxy displayed their might with casual arrogance. The Zephyr Council's representatives, tall, insectoid beings with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the station's lights like prisms, gestured toward holographic displays showing their plasma bombardment capabilities. Their weapons could glass entire planets in minutes. Nearby, the Dominion warchief, Thrax, a massive reptilian creature whose scales seemed to absorb light, was demonstrating their quantum torpedo technology to a fascinated crowd. His species had conquered 17 star systems through pure military superiority, and their ships could fold space itself into a weapon. The very air around him shimmered with contained energy fields that made Sarah's skin crawl. But it was the Ethereal Collective's Speaker Luminara who truly commanded attention. The being appeared as a constantly shifting pattern of light and energy, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Her species had transcended physical form millennia ago, and their psychic warfare capabilities were legendary. They could turn entire fleets against each other with a thought, manipulating the minds of their enemies from across star systems. "Look at them," Torres growled, his voice barely audible above the ambient noise. "They think we're some backwater species that got lucky enough to stumble into space travel. They have no idea what we're really capable of." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Admiral was right, of course. What these advanced civilizations didn't understand was that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology. It was their ability to adapt, to learn, and to turn their enemies' strengths against them. While the galaxy's powers had remained static for centuries, content with their technological superiority, humans had been studying, analyzing, and improving. The formal presentations began with the Zephyr Council taking the stage. Kethva, their military coordinator, stood at the center of a massive holographic display that showed their fleet formations. His forearms moved in complex patterns as he spoke, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had never known defeat. "Our plasma crescent formations have maintained galactic peace for 300 cycles," he declared, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the tactical displays. Each vessel carries enough firepower to sterilize a moon. Our biocoded targeting systems ensure perfect accuracy across interstellar distances. No force in the galaxy can match our coordination and destructive capability. The assembled delegates murmured their approval, and Sarah noticed several species taking notes on their various recording devices. This was more than a summit. It was a demonstration of power, a reminder of the established order that had kept the galaxy stable for centuries. The Dominion followed with an even more impressive display. War Chief Thrax's presentation filled the entire observation deck, with holographic representations of their dreadnought fleets. Ships the size of small cities moved in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. The Dominion has perfected the art of warfare. Thrax's voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. Our quantum torpedoes can destabilize the atomic structure of any target. Our warriors are bred for combat, enhanced from birth to be perfect killing machines. We have never lost a battle because we understand that strength is the only truth in the universe. The demonstration continued with fleet maneuvers that defied physics as Sarah understood them. Ships appeared and disappeared across vast distances, their quantum drives allowing them to strike from multiple dimensions simultaneously. It was a terrifying display of technological superiority that left most delegates silent with awe. When the ethereal collective's turn came, Speaker Luminara simply gestured, and the minds of everyone present were filled with visions of their psychic warfare capabilities. Sarah felt the alien presence touching the edges of her consciousness, showing her fleets turning against their own commanders, entire civilizations surrendering without a single shot fired. The demonstration lasted only seconds, but its impact was devastating. Physical warfare is primitive. Luminara's voice resonated directly in their minds. We have evolved beyond such crude methods. Why destroy when you can convert? Why conquer when you can convince? The collective maintains order through understanding, not violence. As the major powers finished their presentations, an uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. Sarah realized that this was Earth's moment to present their capabilities. To the galaxy's military leaders, she felt the weight of every eye in the room as she walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. Honored delegates, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. Earth appreciates the opportunity to demonstrate our defensive capabilities. She gestured to Torres, who activated a holographic display showing Earth's fleet formations. The reaction was immediate and not what Sarah had hoped for. She heard the unmistakable sound of chittering laughter from the Zephyr delegation. One of the Dominion warriors made a sound that her translator identified as amusement. Even the usually stoic, ethereal collective seemed to pulse with what could only be described as condescension. Kinetic weapons, Kethfer observed, his compound eyes glittering with what Sarah recognized as barely contained mirth. How wonderfully ... traditional. The human display showed their battleships and destroyers, armed with railguns, missile systems, and energy weapons that were centuries behind what the other species considered standard. Their ships were smaller, slower, and apparently less impressive than anything else in the galaxy. Chemical propulsion, War Chief Thrax noted, his massive head tilting as he studied the human vessels. Fascinating. We have museum pieces that use similar technology. Do you also employ solar sails and reaction wheels? The laughter spread through the chamber like wildfire. Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment as delegates from dozens of species whispered among themselves, their voices carrying clearly in the chamber's acoustics. She caught fragments of conversation. primitive, outdated, charming in its simplicity. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her voice professional despite the humiliation. Our forces have proven effective in defensive operations, she said. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability and resourcefulness over raw firepower. Adaptability, Speaker Luminara's voice echoed in their minds, tinged with what could only be described as amusement. How quaint. One adapts to survive, but one evolves to thrive. Perhaps your species will develop more sophisticated methods given time. The dismissal was complete and devastating. Sarah felt the weight of failure settling on her shoulders as the chamber's attention turned to other matters. Earth had been given their moment to prove themselves, and they had failed spectacularly. The galaxy's powers had made their judgment. Clear, humanity was a developing species, charming in their enthusiasm but ultimately irrelevant to the greater cosmic order. As the summit continued with discussions of territory disputes and trade agreements, Sarah noticed that Earth was no longer being consulted on any major decisions. They had been relegated to observer status, allowed to listen but not expected to contribute anything meaningful to the galaxy's military planning. It was during the lunch break that everything changed. Sarah was standing alone on the observation deck, watching the nebula's swirling gases, when alarms began blaring throughout the station. The emergency lighting cast everything in a harsh, red glow as automated systems announced a developing situation. "Attention all delegates," came the voice of the station's commander over the intercom. "We have detected an unauthorized fleet approaching human transport vessels in the Kepler 442 system. All military representatives are requested to report to the tactical center immediately." Sarah's blood ran cold. The Kepler 442 system was one of humanity's newest colonies, home to nearly 2 million civilians. If pirates or raiders were targeting human transports, those people were defenseless. The nearest Earth fleet vessels were days away, and the colony's defenses were minimal. The tactical center was chaos when Sarah arrived. Dozens of alien officers were gathered around holographic displays showing the developing situation. She could see the human transport, Convoy 5 massive cargo ships carrying supplies to the colony, accompanied by only 2 escort destroyers. Surrounding them was a pirate fleet of 30 vessels, a mix of stolen military ships and modified civilian craft. The pirates were a common problem in the outer systems, usually consisting of criminals and outcasts from various species who had banded together for mutual protection and profit. "The human vessels are severely outgunned," observed Kethfer, his forearms moving as he analyzed the tactical display. Their escorts lacked the firepower to engage so many targets effectively. A tragic loss, but perhaps this will demonstrate why developing species require protection. Sarah watched in horror as the pirate fleet moved to surround the human convoy. She could see the transport ships' desperate attempts to change course, but they were too slow and too heavily loaded to escape. The escort destroyers moved to intercept, but everyone in the room could see it was hopeless. Then something unexpected happened. The human ships stopped running. The 2 escort destroyers, tiny compared to the pirate vessels surrounding them, suddenly changed formation. Instead of positioning themselves defensively around the transports, they spread out in a wide pattern that made no tactical sense to any of the assembled military experts. "What are they doing?" War Chief Thrax rumbled, his massive form leaning forward to study the display. "That formation exposes their flanks to attack." Sarah found herself holding her breath as the pirate fleet moved in for the kill. The first wave of attacks came from multiple directions, energy, weapons, and missiles streaking toward the human vessels. According to every tactical manual in the galaxy, the human ships should have been destroyed in the opening moments of the engagement. Instead, something impossible happened. The human destroyers seemed to shimmer and blur, their forms becoming indistinct as advanced stealth systems engaged. The pirate weapons passed through empty space where the ships had been moments before, their targeting systems confused by what appeared to be sophisticated electronic warfare capabilities. Impossible, breathed Dr. Vasquez, her eyes wide with surprise. Those are prototype systems. They shouldn't be operational yet. But the surprises were just beginning. The human ships reappeared in completely different positions, their own. Weapons systems charging with an energy signature that made the chamber's sensors scream warnings. When they fired, it wasn't with the primitive kinetic weapons they had demonstrated earlier. Instead, coherent energy beams lanced out from the human vessels, each shot precisely targeted and devastatingly effective. The pirate ships, caught completely off guard by the unexpected display of advanced weaponry, began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. "Those are modified plasma accelerators," Kethfer whispered, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the tactical display. "But the energy output is beyond anything we've seen from human technology." The battle was over in minutes. The human destroyers moved through the pirate fleet like death itself, their weapons cutting through shields and armor with surgical precision. Not a single pirate vessel escaped, and the human transports continued on their course as if nothing had happened. The tactical center fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth had just demonstrated military capabilities that were far beyond what they had shown during their presentation. The question that hung in the air was simple but terrifying. If humans could do this, what else were they hiding? Sarah felt a grim satisfaction as she watched the assembled delegates struggle to process what they had witnessed. The galaxy's powers had made their judgment about humanity based on incomplete information. They had assumed that what Earth showed them was all they possessed, never considering that humans might be capable of strategic deception. Commander Chen, Speaker Luminara's voice resonated in her mind, and for the first time, Sarah detected a note of uncertainty in the alien's psychic communication. Perhaps Earth would be willing to provide additional demonstrations of your defensive capabilities. Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she turned to face the assembled military leaders. The laughter had stopped, and in its place was something humanity had never seen from the galaxy's powers: respect mixed with fear. "I believe that can be arranged," she replied, her voice carrying a confidence that hadn't been there before. "But you'll need to see the full demonstration to understand what humanity truly brings to the galactic community." The game had changed, and Earth was no longer playing by the rules the galaxy expected. The real revelation was yet to come. The revelation that changed everything. The main assembly hall of Nexus Prime had been transformed into an arena of anticipation. Representatives from every major galactic power filled the tiered seating, their attention focused on the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber. After the unexpected demonstration in the Kepler 442 system, every species wanted to understand what humanity was truly capable of. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the center of the arena, no longer the dismissed representative of a backward species. The events of the previous day had changed everything. Around her, the galaxy's military leaders watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed concern. "Honored delegates," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "Yesterday, you witnessed a glimpse of human defensive capabilities. Today, Earth would like to demonstrate why we believe we can contribute meaningfully to galactic security. She gestured to Admiral Torres, who activated a complex holographic display that filled the chamber with swirling data streams and tactical readouts. But this wasn't the simple fleet formation display they had shown before. This was something far more sophisticated. "What you're seeing," Torres announced, his weathered face serious, "is the real-time status of Project Synthesis. For the past 3 years, while the galaxy has been focused on traditional military doctrine, humanity has been developing something entirely different." The display shifted, showing what appeared to be a standard human soldier in combat armor. But as the delegates watched, the armor began to change, flowing and adapting like living tissue. Components that had appeared mechanical suddenly revealed themselves to be biological, growing and shifting with the soldiers' movements. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her voice filled with professional pride. "Earth's greatest advantage has never been our technology alone. It's our ability to integrate disparate systems in ways that other species consider impossible. What you're seeing is the result of combining human biology with advanced AI systems and reverse-engineered alien technology." The reaction in the chamber was immediate and electric. Kethfer's 4 arms moved in agitated patterns as he studied the display, his compound eyes reflecting the light from the holographic projections. "Impossible," he chittered, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. "Biological and mechanical systems cannot be integrated at that level. The rejection rates alone would be catastrophic." Sarah smiled, remembering the galaxy's earlier dismissal of human capabilities. "That's what makes us different," she said. "Where other species see insurmountable barriers, humans see problems to be solved. We don't just adapt to existing technology, we evolve it." The demonstration continued as the holographic soldier began to move through a complex training scenario. But this wasn't a simulation. The chamber's sensors confirmed that they were watching real-time footage from Earth's military training facilities. The soldier moved with inhuman speed and precision, his biomechanical enhancements allowing him to process information and react faster than any purely biological or mechanical system could manage. The integration process begins with genetic modification, Dr. Vasquez explained, her scientific enthusiasm evident despite the military context. "We've learned to modify human DNA to accept cybernetic implants without rejection. But that's just the beginning." The display shifted to show the soldier's internal systems, revealing a complex network of biological and mechanical components working in perfect harmony. Neural interfaces connected directly to AI processors, while engineered muscle fibers integrated seamlessly with mechanical actuators. "Each soldier becomes a living weapon system," Torres continued, his voice filled with grim satisfaction. "They retain human creativity and adaptability while gaining processing power and physical capabilities that surpass anything we've encountered in the galaxy." War Chief Thrax leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "You speak of individual enhancement," he rumbled, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had conquered star systems through military might. "But warfare is about more than individual capability. It's about coordination, strategy, and the ability to project power across vast distances." Sarah nodded, having expected this challenge. "You're absolutely right," she agreed. "Individual enhancement is only the beginning. Would you like to see how our forces operate as a coordinated unit?" The holographic display expanded to show a massive training facility hidden beneath the surface of Mars. What the delegates saw there made them fall silent with shock. Hundreds of enhanced soldiers moved through complex combat scenarios, but they weren't operating as individual units. They were functioning as a single, collective organism. The AI integration doesn't just enhance individual performance, Sarah explained, watching the alien delegates' growing amazement. It creates a distributed consciousness that allows our forces to coordinate at levels that pure biological or mechanical systems cannot achieve. The soldiers on the display moved with perfect synchronization, anticipating each other's actions and responding to threats before they fully developed. It was like watching a dance of death, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Speaker. Luminara's energy form pulsed with what could only be described as agitation. This is beyond enhancement. Her voice resonated in the minds of everyone present. You have created a hybrid consciousness that bridges the gap between individual and collective awareness. The implications are staggering. Dr. Vasquez nodded enthusiastically. The AI systems learn from every soldier's experiences, creating a shared knowledge base that grows with each encounter. Every battle, every training exercise, every tactical decision becomes part of a collective memory that makes our forces more effective over time. The demonstration shifted to show actual combat footage from recent conflicts that the galaxy had never heard about. Human forces engaging unknown alien threats in battles that took place in the dark spaces between star systems. The enhanced soldiers adapted to enemy tactics in real time, their biomechanical systems evolving countermeasures faster than their opponents could deploy new strategies. These conflicts, Kethfer observed, his voice carrying a note of suspicion, they are not in any official records. When did these battles occur? Sarah exchanged glances with Torres before answering. The galaxy has been focused on known threats and established powers, she said carefully. But space is vast, and not all dangers announce themselves through diplomatic channels. While you've been maintaining the status quo, we've been dealing with problems that haven't reached your attention yet. The implications of her words hit the chamber like a physical blow. The galaxy's powers had assumed that their intelligence networks were comprehensive, that they knew about every significant threat in their region of space. The idea that humanity had been fighting wars they knew nothing about was deeply unsettling. "Show them the Void Hunters," Torres said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of hard-won experience. The holographic display shifted to show something that made several delegates recoil in horror. Creatures that seemed to be made of living shadow moved through space without ships, their forms shifting and changing as they attacked human colonies. The beings appeared to feed on light itself, leaving behind areas of absolute darkness that seemed to consume everything they touched. First contact occurred 18 months ago, Sarah explained, watching the alien delegates' reactions carefully. A deep space colony went dark, completely cut off from all communication. When our forces arrived to investigate, we found this. The footage showed human ships approaching a colony that had been transformed into something from a nightmare. The space around the settlement was filled with absolute darkness, and within that darkness, shapes moved that defied understanding. Traditional weapons were useless, Torres continued, his voice grim. Energy weapons were absorbed. Kinetic projectiles simply disappeared into the void. Even nuclear weapons had no effect. The creatures seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. The chamber watched in horrified fascination as the human forces engaged the Void Hunters. The enhanced soldiers' biomechanical systems adapted to the threat in return, developing countermeasures that their creators had never imagined. The AI networks processed the alien threat and created entirely new weapon systems on the fly. The solution came from understanding that the creatures existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, Dr. Vasquez explained. Our enhanced soldiers, quantum consciousness, allowed them to perceive and interact with the beings across dimensional boundaries. The battle footage showed human forces using weapons that seemed to bend reality itself, creating zones of structured spacetime that trapped the shadow creatures and forced them back into normal dimensional space where they could be destroyed. We've fought 17 separate incursions, Sarah revealed, watching the shocked faces of the galactic delegates. Each time, our forces have adapted and evolved. The Void Hunters are no longer a threat to human colonies, but they're still out there, probing for weaknesses in other species' defenses. The silence in the chamber was absolute. The galaxy's powers were realizing that while they had been content with their technological superiority, humanity had been quietly evolving into something far more dangerous than they had imagined. Kethva was the first to speak, his voice carrying a note of respect that hadn't been there before. You have been protecting the galaxy without our knowledge, he said. While we maintained our territories and traded resources, you were fighting threats that could have destroyed us all. That's what humans do, Sarah replied simply. We don't just survive, we make sure others can survive too. But we've learned that sometimes the galaxy needs to be protected from itself. The demonstration continued with revelations that left the delegates speechless. Human forces had been secretly monitoring and countering threats that the galaxy's intelligence networks had never detected. Ancient AI systems awakening in dead systems, viral organisms that could consume entire ecosystems, and predator species that hunted civilizations for sport. The question, Torres said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen too much combat, is whether the galaxy is ready to work with us as equals, or whether you prefer to continue believing that your traditional methods are sufficient. War Chief Thrax stood slowly, his massive form commanding attention. The Dominion has prided itself on military superiority for centuries, he rumbled, his voice carrying genuine humility for the first time. But what you have shown us today demonstrates that true strength lies not in domination, but in evolution. The Dominion formally requests alliance with Earth's military forces. The statement sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Dominion had never requested alliance with anyone. They had always demanded submission or conquest for their war chief. To request partnership was unprecedented. Speaker Luminara's energy form pulsed with complex patterns of light. The collective has observed the development of consciousness for millennia. Her voice resonated in everyone's minds. What humanity has achieved represents a new stage in the evolution of intelligence itself. We would be honored to learn from your methods. One by one, the galaxy's powers began to understand what Sarah had been trying to tell them. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced military technology, they had become something new, something that transcended the traditional boundaries between species, between biological and mechanical, between individual and collective consciousness. Earth accepts these offers of partnership, Sarah announced, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had watched impossible things become reality. But understand that working with us means accepting that the galaxy is far more dangerous than you've realized. We've been shielding you from threats that could end civilization itself. The summit ended with the signing of agreements that would reshape the galactic power structure. Earth was granted not just membership in the Galactic Council, but a leadership role in defending against threats that traditional military doctrine couldn't handle. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Sarah reflected on how far humanity had come. 5 years ago, they had been alone in the universe, struggling to understand their place among the stars. Now, they had become the guardians of galactic civilization, protectors of species that had once dismissed them as primitive. The galaxy would never laugh at humanity again. They had seen what humans could become when they stopped limiting themselves to conventional thinking. And in the dark spaces between stars, ancient threats stirred. Drawn by the new power that had emerged in the galaxy, the real war was just beginning, and humanity was ready to fight it on terms that no one else could have imagined. The age of human ascendancy had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The discovery of Betrayal Commander Sarah Chen walked through the crystal corridors of Nexus Station with the same confident stride she had maintained for 15 years. The massive space station served as the capital of the Galactic Council, home to representatives from 43 different species. Sarah had dedicated her career to building bridges between humanity and the older, more established civilizations of the galaxy. The morning briefing had been routine. Trade agreements with the Voss Collective, mining rights in the Outer Rim, standard diplomatic procedures that kept the galaxy functioning smoothly. Sarah enjoyed the work, even if some of her colleagues back on Earth thought it was boring. She believed in cooperation, in finding common ground between species that had evolved on different worlds under different stars. As she approached her office in the human embassy wing, Sarah noticed something unusual. The corridor was unusually quiet. Normally, staff members from various species moved through these halls conducting business. Today, the area seemed almost deserted. A strange energy hung in the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm. Sarah's assistant, a young man named David Park, looked up nervously as she entered. His hands shook slightly as he handed her the day's reports. Something was definitely wrong. David had worked with Sarah for 3 years and had never shown signs of anxiety during routine diplomatic work. "Commander," David whispered, glancing around to make sure they were alone. "I think you need to see something. I was delivering documents to the Keth embassy this morning when I overheard a conversation. The Keth ambassador was speaking with someone from the Xylonian Republic. They mentioned something called the Purge Protocol." Sarah felt a cold sensation spread through her chest. In all her years of diplomatic service, she had never heard that term. Protocol names in galactic politics were usually boring and descriptive. Emergency Evacuation Protocol, Trade Dispute Resolution Protocol. The word purge suggested something far more sinister. "What exactly did you hear?" Sarah asked, keeping her voice steady despite the growing alarm in her mind. David pulled out his personal datapad and showed her a recording. His hands were still trembling. "I activated my personal recorder when I realized they were discussing something classified. Listen to this." The recording was brief but devastating. The Keth ambassador's deep, rumbling voice was unmistakable. "The Purge Protocol has been approved by all 7 primary species. The human population growth rate has exceeded acceptable parameters. Their technological advancement threatens the established galactic order. Total elimination is scheduled to begin in 72 hours. Sarah's world tilted. 15 years of diplomatic work, 15 years of building relationships and trust, and the aliens she had considered friends were planning genocide. The recording continued with more horrifying details. The plan involved simultaneous strikes on Earth and all human colonies. No survivors were to be left. "We need to get this information to Earth immediately," Sarah said. her training taking over even as her personal world crumbled. Contact the Earth Communication Array. Send this recording through encrypted channels. David's face went pale. I already tried, Commander. All human communication systems have been disabled. They're jamming our signals. We're completely cut off. The full scope of the betrayal became clear. This wasn't a hasty decision made in panic. The Galactic Council had been planning this for months, maybe years. They had systematically isolated humanity before striking. Sarah realized that every friendly conversation, every trade agreement, every diplomatic victory had been part of an elaborate deception. Then we have to get off this station and warn Earth in person, Sarah decided. How long until the next transport to human space? The weekly supply run isn't for another 5 days, David replied. But Commander, I don't think they're going to let us leave. Security around the human quarters has been increased. There are Keth guards at every exit. Sarah moved to her office window and looked out at the docking bays. Sure enough, heavily armed aliens were positioned at strategic points throughout the station. Humanity's diplomatic mission had become a prison. The aliens were making sure. No word of their plan reached Earth, but Sarah Chen hadn't survived 15 years in galactic politics without learning how to handle difficult situations. She had contingency plans that even her own government didn't know about. During her first year on Nexus Station, she had discovered maintenance tunnels that connected different sections of the massive structure. She had explored them out of curiosity, mapping routes that bypassed official corridors. David, I need you to create a distraction, Sarah instructed. Go to the main diplomatic hall and start a loud argument about trade violations with the Voss representative. Make it sound like a typical human complaint about unfair treatment. Keep their attention focused on you. While David reluctantly went. To cause a diplomatic incident, Sarah accessed her personal safe. Inside, she kept emergency supplies that every deep space diplomat carried. Food tablets, breathing apparatus, and, most importantly, a quantum encryption device that could store massive amounts of data. She downloaded every file she could access about the Purge Protocol, along with detailed intelligence about the alien fleet positions. The maintenance tunnels were cramped and dark, but Sarah had memorized the routes years ago. She crawled through narrow passages that ran behind the walls of the diplomatic quarters. The tunnels led to the station's lower levels, where cargo and maintenance vehicles operated. If she could reach the service bays, she might be able to steal a small transport vessel. Behind her, she could hear alarms beginning to sound. David's distraction had worked, but now the aliens would realize that Sarah was missing. Security teams would be searching for her throughout the station. She had to move quickly. The service bay was enormous, filled with cargo containers and maintenance equipment. Small transport pods, designed for inter-system travel, sat in rows like sleeping metal insects. Sarah had watched maintenance crews operate these vehicles and understood the basic controls. The pods were simple, designed to be operated by various alien species with different physical capabilities. As she climbed into the nearest transport pod, Sarah heard heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors behind her. Alien security forces were closing in. She activated the pod's systems and felt the small craft lift off the deck. The bay doors were already beginning to close, but Sarah pushed the engines to maximum power and shot through the narrowing gap into open space. Nexus Station fell away behind her as the transport pod accelerated toward the edge of the star system. Sarah knew the aliens would pursue her, but the small pod had one advantage. It was designed for maintenance work and had basic stealth capabilities to avoid interfering with larger ship operations. She activated the stealth systems and changed course several times, hoping to confuse any pursuers. The journey to Earth would take for days at maximum speed. Sarah settled in for the long flight, reviewing the intelligence she had gathered. The scope of the alien betrayal was staggering. 7 major species had voted unanimously for human extinction. The Keth Empire, the Xylonian Republic, the Voss Collective, and 4 others had decided that humanity represented an unacceptable threat to their established order. But as Sarah read through the intelligence files, she began to notice something interesting. The alien assessments of human military capability seemed outdated and incomplete. They estimated that Earth possessed perhaps 200 ships, mostly older designs, adapted from alien technology. The aliens believed that humanity's space fleet was weak and disorganized. Sarah knew this assessment was wrong, but she couldn't understand why. As a diplomatic liaison, she didn't have access to classified military information. However, she had noticed unusual activity during her visits to Earth over the years. Construction projects in remote asteroid fields, unexplained increases in military personnel, scientists and engineers being recruited for classified projects. During her 3rd day of travel, Sarah received an encrypted message on an emergency frequency that most people thought was reserved for navigation beacons. The message was brief: package received, delivery confirmed, welcome home protocols activated. Sarah didn't understand the message, but something about it filled her with hope. Someone on Earth was expecting her. Someone knew she was coming with vital intelligence. The message suggested that Earth's leadership wasn't as unprepared as the aliens believed. As her transport pod approached Earth's solar system, Sarah saw something that made her gasp in amazement. The space around Earth wasn't defended by 200 obsolete ships. Massive vessels that she had never seen before moved in perfect formations around the planet. Sleek, predatory ships that looked nothing like the converted alien technology the Galactic Council expected to find. A communication came through on military frequencies. Commander Chen, this is Fleet Admiral Marcus Torres. We've been waiting for you. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7 of the Orbital Command Station. We have much to discuss. Sarah realized that humanity had been keeping secrets of its own. While the aliens planned their betrayal, Earth had been preparing for war. The next few hours would determine whether humanity survived or joined the list of extinct species that had underestimated the older civilizations of the galaxy. The Warfleet Strikes Back Fleet Admiral Marcus Torres stood in the command center of humanity's most classified military installation. The Orbital Command Station appeared on public records as a research facility, but in reality, it served as the nerve center for Operation Enduring Shield. For 20 years, Torres had overseen the development of humanity's true military capability, hidden from alien observation through careful deception and misdirection. Commander Sarah Chen sat across from him in the secure briefing room, her face still showing signs of exhaustion from her desperate escape from Nexus Station. The intelligence she had brought confirmed what Torres had suspected for years. The Galactic Council viewed humanity as a threat that needed to be eliminated before it became too powerful. Commander Chen, Torres began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had prepared for this moment for decades. What you're about to learn is classified at the highest levels. Even most of Earth's government doesn't know the full scope of what we've built. The briefing room's walls activated, showing holographic displays of star charts and ship designs. Sarah gasped as she saw the true extent of humanity's military preparation. Hidden bases in asteroid fields, shipyards built inside hollowed-out moons, manufacturing facilities that had been disguised as mining operations. "We've been building a real space fleet for 20 years, Torres explained. "Every ship the aliens have seen is a deliberate deception. Old, slow vessels designed to make them think we're using their cast-off technology. Meanwhile, we've been developing our own designs based on human engineering principles." The holographic displays showed ships that looked nothing like the curved, organic designs favored by most alien species. Human vessels were angular and efficient, built for speed and firepower. They incorporated technology that the aliens had never shared, innovations that human scientists had developed independently. "How many ships?" Sarah asked, still trying to process the scope of the deception. 847 combat vessels, Torres replied with pride. "Each one equipped with technology the aliens don't know we possess. Quantum stealth systems, adaptive artificial intelligence, and weapons that can punch through any shield system in the galaxy." Torres activated another display showing real-time positions of alien fleets. The Galactic Council had positioned ships around every human colony, preparing for simultaneous strikes that would wipe out humanity in a single coordinated attack. They expected to face minimal resistance from Earth's supposedly primitive fleet. "They're planning to attack in 18 hours, Torres continued. 7 alien fleets, over 3,000 ships total. It would be overwhelming if they were facing the fleet they think we have. But they're not." Sarah looked at the tactical displays, showing the positions of both human and alien forces. "What's our plan?" Torres smiled, and Sarah realized it wasn't a pleasant expression. It was the smile of a predator that had been hiding in tall grass, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "We're going to hit them first, simultaneously, at every alien homeworld. While they're positioning their fleets to attack our colonies, we're going to destroy their ability to wage war." The scope of the operation was staggering. Human task forces had been secretly positioned throughout the galaxy, using stealth technology to avoid detection. Each alien species that had voted for human extinction would face a surprise attack on their most important military installations. "The aliens think in terms of massive fleet battles," Torres explained. "They gather their ships together and attack, in formation, like naval battles from ancient Earth history. But we're going to fight like humans fight. Fast, unpredictable, hitting them where they don't expect it." Torres activated a communication link to the fleet commanders positioned throughout the galaxy. Sarah watched as reports came in from captains she had never heard of, commanding ships with names like Retribution, Defiance, and Human Pride. Each task force reported ready for immediate action. "All units, this is Fleet Admiral Torres," he spoke into the communication system. "Operation Enduring Shield is now active. You have authorization to engage alien military targets. Show them what happens when they threaten humanity." The first reports came in within minutes. Captain Jennifer Walsh, commanding the stealth destroyer Lightning Strike, had successfully infiltrated the Keth Empire's primary shipyard. Her ships, quantum torpedoes, destroyed 3 massive battlecruisers that were still under construction, along with the manufacturing facilities that produced them. Across the galaxy, similar attacks were taking place simultaneously. Human ships appeared without warning in alien home systems, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before defenders could respond. The aliens had spent centuries developing military doctrine based on predictable, ceremonial warfare. They had no experience fighting an enemy that refused to follow established rules. Captain Robert Kim reported from the Xylonian Republic's capital system. Primary military command destroyed. Orbital defense platforms eliminated. Enemy fleets scattered and retreating. His ship, the Perseverance, had used advanced jamming technology to disable Xylonian communications before systematically destroying their military infrastructure. The alien fleets positioned to attack human colonies found themselves receiving panicked distress calls from their homeworlds. Their carefully planned genocide was falling apart as their own civilizations came under attack from an enemy they had drastically underestimated. Torres watched the tactical displays as red dots, representing alien military assets, disappeared across the galaxy. Each destroyed facility represented years of alien military development erased in minutes. The psychological effect was as important as the physical damage. The aliens had never faced an enemy capable of striking at their heartland while their fleets were deployed elsewhere. "Admiral," reported Commander Lisa Park from the communications station, "we're receiving surrender offers from 3 alien species. The Voss Collective is requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations. Tell them we'll consider their surrender after they recall all fleets threatening human territory," Torres replied, "and make it clear that any attack on human colonies will result in the complete destruction of their homeworld." The battle reports continued to pour in. Human ships were outperforming every expectation, their advanced technology giving them overwhelming advantages in speed, firepower, and tactical flexibility. The aliens' numerical superiority meant nothing when human vessels could strike without warning and disappear before retaliation was possible. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the battlecruiser Indomitable, engaged a Keth battle fleet of 12 ships with her single vessel, using hit-and-run tactics that the aliens couldn't counter. She destroyed 8 enemy ships and crippled the remaining 4 before they could land a single shot on her vessel. "The aliens are calling for a general retreat," reported Commander Park. "All 7 species are attempting to recall their fleets to defend their homeworlds." Torres nodded with satisfaction. The plan was working exactly as designed. By threatening the aliens' homes, humanity had forced them to abandon their genocide and focus on protecting themselves. But the retreat wouldn't save them. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything in the alien fleets. "All units, pursue and destroy," Torres ordered. "Don't let any of their ships reach safe harbor. Make them understand that threatening humanity was the biggest mistake in galactic history." The pursuit phase of the operation was devastating for the alien forces. Human ships used their superior speed to intercept retreating alien vessels, destroying them before they could reach home. The aliens' massive, slow battlecruisers became easy targets for human ships that could dance around them at will. Within 12 hours, the military power of 7 major alien civilizations had been effectively eliminated. Their fleets were destroyed, their shipyards ruined, their ability to wage war reduced to nothing. The species that had voted unanimously to exterminate humanity were now defenseless against human retaliation. Torres received a priority: communication from Earth's leadership. President Chen wanted to know about terms for ending the conflict. The aliens were requesting immediate peace negotiations, offering to pay reparations and accept any conditions humanity demanded. "What are your recommendations, Admiral?" the President asked. Torres looked at the tactical display, showing the complete dominance of human forces throughout the galaxy. 24 hours ago, these aliens had been planning genocide. Now they were begging for mercy. The irony was not lost on him. We establish a new galactic order, Torres replied. One where threatening innocent species results in immediate and overwhelming retaliation. We become the protectors, not the victims. Sarah Chen, who had been quietly observing the operation, spoke up. Admiral, what about the other alien species? The ones who weren't part of the conspiracy? Torres smiled, and this time it was a genuinely warm expression. They get to see what happens when you ally with humanity instead of opposing us. I suspect we're going to have a lot of new friends in the galaxy. The war was over in less than 24 hours. Humanity had gone from potential victims of genocide to the dominant military power in the galaxy. The aliens had learned too late that underestimating human determination and ingenuity was a fatal mistake. As reports of alien surrenders continued to arrive, Sarah realized that her 15 years of diplomatic work hadn't been wasted after all. The relationships she had built with honest alien species would be crucial for establishing a new, more just galactic civilization. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity would make sure it was better. Asterisk.